Hello and thank you for coming back for another edition of Campfire Stories with Sasquatch. Today I'm going to talk about Bigfoot in the big woods. It was about 15 years ago I found myself down in Craven County in some really big woods. Really big woods. It was starting to get dark. The dogs had been running deer all day. They were scattered out all over everywhere. And we were in the process of catching up the dogs. So we were spread out. I mean, some of us were probably a mile apart. We were communicating on the radio, catching different dogs. When one of the members of our party got on the radio and said, "Y'all got to quit messing with me. Who's throwing stuff at my truck? Who's throwing pine cones at me? Who's throwing rocks at me?" We weren't doing it. Nobody was even close to him. We asked on the radio, said, "Where are you at?" And turns out the closest one to him was probably 3/4 of a mile away. He was off back in the woods. And something was throwing rocks at him and something was throwing pine cones at him. It wasn't us. We weren't, picking on him like that. So as the night progresses, as it gets darker and darker, we've still got 2 dogs out. I had one that was named Fred. He was actually my son's dog. He was a great big black and tan walker. And he was as stubborn as all get out. He would not come to you. When he was ready to go, he was ready to go. And when he was ready to hunt, he was ready to hunt. And when he got tired, he'd let you know because he'd come to you. But other than that, wasn't no catching him. Now, this was the time before we had fancy tracking collars so we could tone the dog and vibrate the dog or shock the dog and get the dog's attention. None of that existed. We had old telemetry collars that sent out a beep over the airways, and we could hear the beep, and depending on how loud the beep was or what direction the beep was, that gave you an idea of where your dog was. So old Fred was, about half mile from me, back up in the woods where I couldn't get to him, and I could hear him bark, and he had an old loud bark. You could hear him. He was calling on something. So my friend Scott kept getting on the radio and he said, "You got to quit messing with me, quit picking on me." So we got down to where Fred was the only dog left in the woods, and most people had left and gone home. Heard old Fred out there, ooh, ooh. And Scott's still getting stuff thrown at him. Rocks, pine cones, limbs. We hear something that sounds like a woodpecker knocking, but it's not a woodpecker. It's more wood on wood, and the sound would just echo through the darkness of the trees. Fred got close to me, and I managed to get my hands on him and put him in the truck. I got on the radio and said I called him. So Scott's like, "Where'd you catch him at?" I told him, and he did a little quick mental cipher in there and realized that I was almost a mile from him. So he gets back on the radio and he says, "Whoever's throwing stuff at me is still doing it. Whoever's beating on the trees out here in the woods is still doing it." I said, "Well, we're the only 2 out here. Everybody else has gone home. And I'm not doing it. I'm not picking on you at all. I appreciate your help trying to catch my dog." So my Facebook Live gave up the ghost. It's not going to work evidently. So I was testing the studio for that. So back to the story. So we headed back up to the clubhouse, stopped, got our stuff, and had that conversation. I insisted to him that I had not been picking on him out there in the woods. And there was no one else out there. It was just he and I. I made the statement that it was probably Bigfoot out there messing with him. Bigfoot was probably throwing rocks at him and beating on the trees. And, you know, Bigfoot, that was sort of a mating ritual for Bigfoot to beat on the trees and stuff. I told him, I said, there's probably a female Bigfoot out there in the woods that thinks you're kind of cute. So she's probably going to follow you around. She was probably waiting for it to get dark for her to come out and, you know, spend a little time with you. The really funny thing is, that was 15 years ago. And if I go hunting with Scott to this very day, as soon as it starts to get a little dark in the woods, Scott's packing his stuff up and going home. He's not going to be out there in the woods with Bigfoot. So, is Bigfoot real? I have no idea. I know I've seen some stuff in the woods I couldn't explain. But if you're out there in the woods and it's starting to get dark and you hear what sounds like wood knocking on a tree, or something's throwing rocks at you, or something's throwing pine cones at you, take out your phone, turn on the camera, start recording, and start looking around the area, especially in the shadows. Because if Bigfoot takes you, hopefully you'll drop your phone and we'll know what happened to you. Craven County's got some awful big woods. All right, guys, thanks for listening. Enjoy.